How are you, my love?
Cafecito, I'm great. How are you?
So good. And I'm so excited to have you on. I mean, for a plethora of reasons. I adore you. You're one of my new besties. We've had the privilege of working together. But also,
Yes.
you're going to talk about something that a lot of people, when they're exploring professional performance opportunities, this is something that they kind of see as like, well, maybe I could do that. But to have somebody who's in the thick of the cruise performer life, I think is invaluable. So we have so much to jump into. I've already bragged
Yeah.
on you a wee bit. And so again, so much for taking time out of your very busy and exciting schedule to have this cafecito with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
All right, so I want our listeners, my listeners, our listeners, to hear from you and tell us a little bit about your artistic background. Did you grow up singing? Did you go to school for it? All the things.
All of the above. Yeah, I grew up surrounded by music. Um, like it's music's one of the first things I remember. My mom always says that I've been singing since I could talk. And one of my earliest memories is singing with my mom and dad in church and like standing in between them and holding their hands and looking up at them. Like that's one of my earliest memories. And then there's a video of me. I had a little like tape cassette. I don't know if you call it like a kiddie boom box with a handle on it. It had a microphone attached, and I would carry it around with me everywhere and like put the Little Mermaid on and like sing along. Yeah, both of my parents are very artistic. They didn't end up pursuing careers in the arts, but they did it for fun. They both did theater growing up, and they actually met doing theater. So yes, grew up surrounded by it. I went on to perform in a song and dance troupe that's based out of the greater Milwaukee area, and I was in that from the seventh grade until I graduated high school. And ultimately, that was what fueled my desire to pursue it as a career. I was like, how can I do this and make money? Because I can't see myself doing anything else but performing. And I knew some older kids in the group that I was in went on to pursue musical theater, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. Let's do that. And so I auditioned and got into a few schools, and eventually went on to pursue it. Got my bachelor's degree in musical theater, and I remember feeling like because I didn't grow up really doing musical theater, I grew up just like singing and dancing, and that some of that contained musical theater medleys and I did love musical movies growing up, but I didn't really know a whole lot about musical theater. And then when I went to school, I was surrounded by like musical theater nerds. And so I in turn became one. So now I have a passion for musical theater, but my primary love is pop music of all kinds, like spanning the decades, because that's the music that I grew up with. So yes, long story long. I grew up surrounded by it, and that's what inspired me to pursue it long term.
Beautiful. I am going to, we have all of these goodies linked in the show notes, but just you wait until you hear Jordan's voice. And I kind of want you to talk a little bit about this because for the person that especially takes the musical theater route, or any performance route really, they they hear voices like what I describe yours as masterfully flexible, right? And there's an element of how do I achieve that? How do I do that, right? So in your giftedness and in your training, did you ever battle a little bit of imposter syndrome or do you still battle that? Because
Hmm.
again, people are going to listen not only to your speaking voice in this podcast, they're going to listen to your music and be like, what? You're going to gain some new fans, right? And so this is what the conversation I'm always having with
Yeah.
singers, whether you're amateur or you're professional. We fight these insecurity demons of,
Mm.
I'm just going to call them that. Do you grapple with that? And if so, how do you deal with those insecurities?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I will say, in the last couple of years, it's been less frequent. But yeah, of course, there's always that little voice like creeps in every once in a while, like, am I good enough? Do I deserve this? I went through that a lot pursuing my bachelor's degree in musical theater because I did, when I first went there, I felt out of place. Everyone knew all the things about musical theater, Patti LuPone this, Sutton Foster this, and I was like, who are they? And so, and my background was in pop music. And so I questioned a lot, especially earlier on, if I deserved to be there. Um, but I learned that um, you can do anything you put your mind to, right? And I wanted to be there, and I wanted to pursue this. So okay, they don't like the way I sound on this song, so I'll work with my voice teacher, and I will work to sound more quote unquote musical theatery. But my voice teacher in school he was a classically trained opera singer and worked with the lyric a lot in Chicago, and he was like, don't ever lose that pop sound because, especially with the way musical theater has gone, it does tend to lean very pop. And well, they're still like the classically sounding shows and they'll always be around. But he's like, don't ever lose that. I will teach you how to sing a certain way for certain songs, but keep your pop style. That's a strength and the agility. Because I had growing up, I listened to Christina and Whitney and Mariah and learned to riff that way. And just from doing it over and over again, I gained the agility in my voice. And he's like, yeah, don't ever lose that. That's a strength. And so um, it was just about evolving, like appreciating what I had already, but being open to learning how to sing another way. And that's what I love about being an artist and being a singer in particular is that we're never done growing. There's always something new to learn. Like even nowadays, I'm learning how to work my mix a little bit more because there are some things I sing right now that, especially with the show that I'm creating, that go in and out of my break a lot. So it's navigating that and finding new ways to kind of go in and out of those different parts of my voice without breaking and making it sound good as well.
I love that. When you say riff, I was like, one of my favorite riffers for sure, for sure. In fact, I Instagram stories the other day. One of my goals, I even said it out loud to my family. My goal is to get as fast as Jordan Douglas Ellis. Like you are hashtag goals.
Oh my gosh. Oh
And
my
I think it's
God.
refreshing. I think it's refreshing to hear. Wait a second, he's still working on other things too,
Oh
and I
yeah.
love what you said about never, never being done. So, okay, you graduate with your musical theater degree,
Hmm.
and what happened afterwards? As you stepped into the world of auditioning, what got you on a ship?
Well, actually, it was during my senior year at school that I auditioned for Royal Caribbean. And I found out that I booked with them before I graduated. So I had a gig lined up before I left school, which was nice.
That's awesome.
I think I was one of the first uh, kids in my class to book work, secure work for after graduation. So that felt really good to know that I was walking into something that I wasn't just going to be like out on my own. Like, what do I do now with this degree and how to pretend and perform? you know. Um, but even and I think cruise ships have come a long way, and I think right when I booked that gig, we were still in the era of like there was kind of like a stigma of being a cruise ship performer. Um, but especially with the way things have gone um, and with companies like Royal Caribbean doing fully fledged musical productions, there is like no stigma anymore. It's probably one of the most lucrative jobs that you could have as a performer, and you get to see the world, So, um, but even then, I didn't even think about that because I was booked and blessed, and I was going to get to see the world. I had never been outside of the United States before, so to finally get to see some of the world was exciting to me, and I was going to get paid for it, and I get to perform. Yeah, so it was that was kind of my entry into the cruise ship world, and I did 4 contracts with Royal Caribbean, kind of spread out over 5 years. I did some regional theater productions in between, and moved to New York within that 5 year range as well. So yeah, and then I kind of found my way back to it on the other side. I did the production singer thing, and of course, being on there for those long contracts, we saw the guest entertainers come in and out. And I was like, I wonder what that's like to not have to be on for 6 months but still get to perform. And in 2017, I saw an ad on Backstage for this group, and they were looking for guys to go out on ships and do the thing. And I was like, oh, another way to be on ships but not have to commit to 7 months at a time. Let's do it. And so that's what brought me into the group that I'm currently with, and that I've been blessed to be a part of for like 6 years now.
What's the name of the group?
The Company Men. So we take songs from the last like 7 or 8 decades, like top 40 songs, and mix them with the current hits of today. So there really is something for everyone. And it's so fun seeing people's faces light up in the audience when, we go from Katy Perry to Sting to Michael Jackson, or you know what I mean? Like it's just out of nowhere too. It's still 6 years later. I have so much fun with it. But having done it and seen other guest entertainers, people who are doing it by themselves, doing a solo show, is like that's the next goal for me. I want to put on my own show. And back to the imposter syndrome, I've especially at the beginning of that process, I had that voice a lot, like, well, are you good enough to hold your own? Like, could you? It's going to be a lot of work. All right, do you think you can do it? Are you worth it? And especially once I came up with my concept, it just felt very meant to be. I was like, no, I can absolutely do this. I deserve this. I've worked my butt off for this. Let's do it. And it's that like unwavering belief in yourself too, that has really, in myself, that has kept me going forward. Because especially when you're taking on an endeavor like this and investing basically all your money, there's no room for doubt. So the second that voice sneaks in, I say, thank you so much for stopping by. Be on your way, please. I'm going to do this
Exactly.
because I deserve it.
Yes, absolutely. So before we dive into this show concept, what would your advice be now that you are in I mean, this is what you are doing right now. You just got off a boat, you're about to go on another one. For
Tomorrow.
anyone who, yeah, I got you just in time. And we can talk more about that. What would your advice be for somebody who's auditioning for their first cruise contract? And what are some, let's say they do get let's break down the audition first.
Okay.
Then, hey, they get an offer. What are some things to advocate for? What are some red flags you might see in a cruise contract? How would you advise our listeners who are
Hmm.
thinking about dipping their toes in this career path?
Well, I definitely say be um, be versatile, because you're going to do a lot of different styles. So you're going to sing pop, you're going to sing musical theater, you'll sing some jazz. Um, when I was a production singer with Royal, we had our main production shows, which all had different themes. But then we also had these, what they called bumper sets. So they do a 70s theme night. And so my female counterpart and I would go and sing 15 minutes of 70s like disco stuff. And then there'd be another night where all 4 singers sang some jazz in a lounge. So first thing I say is just train in all the things, or at least be open to learning new styles, because you're gonna cover it all. Um, I was trying to think, when I auditioned for Royal Caribbean, I was auditioning for Hairspray, so a lot of the material was musical theater. But then they had another show too, so I also sang some pop. And most of it, they gave me, like with the callbacks, they gave me the material the day before, so you had time to prep. And from my experience, not just with ship auditions, but with callbacks, in general, is that generally you will get the material ahead of time. Just, but make sure to look it over and be as prepped as you can. Even if you don't think you have the style of the song down 100%, just commit to it. Go in there knowing, Go in there knowing it, because then they can ask you to tweak things, sing things a different way. Um, Red flags, I don't know, because I know that every cruise line is different. I've only worked with Royal as a production singer, but I know that other cruise lines will have their entertainers also work as crew staff. So they'll work games or trivias or whatever. It's just, you just have to ask yourself if that's something that you're that you're up for. Because some people just want to go and perform, and that's all they want to do. But say it's a ship that, it's a world cruise or something, and you want to see all those ports, and you put up with hosting activities as well. So I wouldn't say those are red flags, but just you just have to ask yourself what's worth your time and energy.
Absolutely. No, that's a great thing to think about, because you have to ask yourself, well, sometimes we take jobs that are the resume building jobs, and then there's other jobs that we say, no, this definitely feels aligned for me. I would
Hmm.
I would argue, I mean, I know that being in this season of life now, versus being in my 20s, it's a different life because you need to make money. I totally get that. But I would
Yeah,
venture to say, I think you probably agree with this based on what you've shared, is go after the things that feel like you, right? Go after the things that
totally.
feel authentic to you.
Yes, and don't compare yourself to anybody else. I think, especially in my early 20s, I got so caught up in like comparing myself to other people my age who were booking constantly. Um, and you just can't get caught up in that, because then you'll never go anywhere, right? And especially in our field, you are never going to have the same career as somebody else. So forge your own path, do what feels right, do what makes you happy. I always say chase the joy. If it's gonna make you happy, like for me, I love singing, I love to travel, and the money is great. That's where I find my joy. And we'll talk about it, but the material in my solo show brings me so much joy. So
I
that is
think
what I'm focused on.
that is a perfect segue into doing something that brings you joy. And I'm sure that
Absolutely.
that like you said, helps you combat the imposter syndrome about, can I pull off a solo show? So please tell us a little bit more about how this concept birthed in your soul and how you're planning.
Yeah, okay. So I grew up surrounded by great music. Like not just the music of my generation, what was hot on the radio at the moment, but the music of my parents' generation and even before, because my dad even loves the music of like that his mom would listen to. So I feel like that's kind of been passed down to me. So I get all of that great music plus the music that I grew up listening to. But um one of the artists that I was surrounded by constantly growing up were the Carpenters. And on both sides, my mom and my dad, I feel like they were just a constant. Um, Whether we were on a road trip or cleaning the house and we had music on in the background, the Carpenters were always there. And I don't know what it was. I mean, it was her voice, definitely. Karen's voice was number one. There was something so intriguing
Yeah.
about it, and listening to her never got old. And then of course there's Richard's orchestrations and those layered harmonies, and they were kind of revolutionary, and for the time. And like what they were doing just wasn't heard of at the time, like layering the vocals, that it created this very particular sound. And then of course her voice at the helm. But there was just something, so even though she passed before I was even born, I just always felt very connected to that music, and I never got tired of listening to it. Um, and so as I was kind of like uh, thinking about doing my own solo show, what would I do? What music would I do? It didn't even take me long. I was like, let's do the Carpenters. Because she was a contralto and a lot of her stuff lived down there, my range overlaps with hers. And so a lot of
Perfect.
their songs I can sing in the original key. Others, I lower maybe a step or two, but and I was thinking too, nobody, because there are other tribute acts out there for the Carpenters, but nobody I think expects a male to be covering the songs. And so I thought, what if I do the Carpenters? And what if I do them reimagined? What if I bring them into the 2020s, um, and give them a more contemporary sound without compromising the quality. You know what? I still want people to recognize the songs. I don't in any way want to ruin the songs. I still want people to be, to recognize them the second they play. But I also wanted to give it my own stamp, put my own stamp on it and make it my own. So I've been working with a guy in Chicago who has been helping me build the tracks from scratch. Um, and it's exactly what I want. I think he and I work very well together. I kind of tell him what I want, and he sends me back a track, and then I'm like, "Oh, I love this. Can we tweak this a little bit?" Then he says, "Yeah, I'll fix it." And then he sends it back, and it's a very collaborative process, and that's one of the things that I love. Because even though yes, I'll be performing the shows as an artist, that it's all about collaboration, right? Like working on a musical together. I mean, it's about coming together and bringing everyone's strengths. And so while I have these ideas for the songs, I also wanted to see what he came up with because he's an artist in his own right. So that's been a really magical process. And that's kind of what led me to, I wasn't planning on releasing any music. I just wanted to build the show and get it on ships. But I loved this arrangement of Superstar so much because a lot of the Carpenter songs are mid tempo, and I was like, I need a strong opener. How can we make one of their songs an opener? And for me, it was Superstar. I was like, I can hear this being an opener, and so I gave him my ideas, and the final product I was just blown away by. And I was like, what if I were to record this and release it? I've always wanted to release a song, so let's do it. So I went down. Him being in Chicago makes it really easy. I'm in Milwaukee, so I just drove down an hour and a half. He has a studio in his house, spent a couple hours there. He had already built the track, so he had the masters, just plugged my voice in and mixed it and sent it back, and I had a song to upload. And you were there with me as I was figuring all that out.
Oh my gosh. And what a song. Can I just take us to have a little love sesh over
Oh,
Jordan's of this particular track? When
oh,
I am her, well, there's a whole number of things that really set this song up for me to fall in love with. I'm a sucker for reimagining stuff or rearranging things, for mashups and all this kind of stuff. Without, of course, completely derailing the original version. But I think it just proves how playful music can be for the singer and to not
yeah,
be afraid to play.
yeah.
So there's on it that I was attracted to. Knowing you, being such a fan of your voice, and hearing about this story and this journey also was like another magnet. Then when I heard it, holy smokes, like it's not like you said, it's not just your voice, although that is like the magic ingredient. You have worked with a stellar arranger who know you can tell the collaboration process in this has been beautiful and succinct because everything complements everything else. The orchestration, the electric guitars you're going to hear, and I'm just giving teasers, right? Because I want people to go listen to it. But it's a gorgeous testament to not being afraid to work with somebody. And in fact, that's gonna probably open the doors faster for you, and in terms of getting this out. So bravo, my friend. I'm gonna say it publicly for all the everywhere where this podcast will live. That is congratulations. If
Thank
this is
you.
just the I cannot wait to hear and see what else you do with this beautiful body of work. I'm curious, in the world of music distribution, if you don't mind sharing, there's so many resources, right? And this is
Mhm.
not an ad. This there's tons like DistroKid and Playlist Supply and everything. What
Yeah.
was your process? releasing your first single?
Um, well, my first step was research. I wanted to, I basically just Googled music distribution and I looked at what came up and I had a million tabs open at once in my browser. And I just went through each of them and I saw what each of them offered, like what it would cost to upload the song, what if there were any benefits. And I knew my songs are all covers, right? So I want to make sure that the songwriters get their dues. So how can I do that easily and avoid any lawsuits and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Um, so eventually I did look at DistroKid, I looked at CD Baby, which I know are popular ones, but I ended up going with one called Sounddrop because they specialized in covers. And so it didn't cost, I think it might have cost like a couple bucks to put the song up, but you get 100% of the streams. Well, I mean, it's split obviously with the songwriters, but they make sure that all of that paperwork is taken care of. So ahead of time, I looked up like the is it ASCAP or something? I went on that website and there's like every song has like a file number or whatever. I'm still very new to it, so I'm sure the terminology is not perfect, but um, when you're about to upload the song, you give them all the information. Yes, it's a cover. Here is the reference number or whatever that number is. And then they say give it like at least 2 weeks before you want the song to drop, so that they have time to make sure that all the legal things are taken care of. So that it was really easy. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so I think I'll continue to use them. I know that other distributors make it easier as far as like they create a Apple Music account for you and make you official and Spotify and all that stuff. But I just kind of, the most important thing for me was making sure that everything was above board. So, so I went with Sounddrop, and then the other stuff will follow. You know, like I've learned how to like go in and create my official Apple Music artist account, my Spotify artist account, and Amazon Music, and all that. But yeah, just a lot of research and finding again what works for you. Um, but
fantastic. Oh my gosh. So fun. So fun. What's I say we just kind of say it out loud in a very mild form of manifesting or whatever. You know, like what do you see for your show this year in 2024?
I see my show being mounted for the first time. Um, Whether that's as a practice run on a ship I do, um, with my group, because there's been talk about if they need extra entertainment, like if you're on for a longer period of time, and sometimes entertainment will fall through, whatever, and they'll ask if any of the guest ends have more material, so that could be a way I get it up. I won't think about the house, I'll just think about getting it up. uh, but yes, my goal is to have it up, or at least do it on its feet for the first time by the end of summer. I'm putting it out there, and I want
I
to
love
start on
it. And
what?
go ahead, no,
Sorry.
no, go ahead, finish.
I want to start on ships, and my hope is that because there are people from all over come to ships, right? So I'm hoping that word spreads, and then I can start performing it on land. I would love to to tour the show on land, because I think again it's music, especially that our parents' generation and about they love. It's very and I think people our age and younger, once they're introduced to it, especially in a new format, will gravitate toward it. And so I'm hoping that it connects with people, and then hoping that'll be a segue to maybe do some original stuff as well.
Absolutely, because you are, sir, a brilliant songwriter as well. I've gotten to hear some of yours too.
You're
So
very
what I was
kind.
going to
Thank
say,
you.
I'll do a part two to this conversation when it's up, and then maybe even have you do a masterclass on how to create your own show.
I would
Are
love
you
to.
down for?
Yeah, I would love to, especially since it's been such a learning experience for me. Uh, and I putting up the show, I've also asked questions. Always, that's my thing too, is never never hesitate to ask for advice or opinions or whatever, because there's a lot that goes into this. And trying to do it on your own without any help, it's nearly impossible. And I have learned a lot by asking questions of other solo guest entertainers that I've met on ships, and asking them, who did you use to put up your charts? Who did you use to create your tracks? How did you do this? Agents, all that stuff. So I'm like, always be open to asking questions, research. Yeah, and everyone's process is different. Um, but I've learned a lot just by kind of like diving into it. So I would be happy to share any knowledge that I have learned or continue to learn throughout the process.
Yes, absolutely. That would be golden. Jordan, where can we find you? Where can we find your music and connect with you?
You can find it anywhere you stream music. uh, I know people on podcasts aren't going to see that. Apple, Spotify, Tidal, YouTube Music. Yes, anywhere. And I'm revamping it right now, but you can also check out my website, jordandouglasellis.com. I think I've put links there, but that's a work in progress, so I apologize if it looks basic.
It's
But
all
yes,
good. Link all that information in the show notes as well. Do you have time for a little rapid fire?
sure, let's do it.
All right. Who's on your playlist right now? If I open up your playlist, who are you listening to?
Dagny, Holly Humberstone. Oh my gosh, who else? I feel like I gravitate toward my ladies. I love oh my gosh, who's the other artist I've been listening to a lot? Oh, Reb, she's a Canadian pop artist. Um, Ali X is another Canadian pop artist that I've been listening to. And of course the staples. I plug in some Christina and Brittany, and it's all awesome women, basically.
For a well-balanced musical diet, right? I love it. I love
Right.
it.
That
Okay.
wasn't really rapid fire.
No, it's okay.
But,
Last streaming binge of yours, whether it was a movie or a series.
True Detective.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know that the first season dropped like 10 years ago, but I saw there's a new season coming out with Jodie Foster. And I was like, I've always, and it's always been on my list. So I'm like, let me finally dive into it. So I just started that. I'm about to finish the first season.
I love it. I love it. Last question, not so rapid fire, but it's one that I want to leave you with and our listeners with. What's something that you could go back and tell Jordan 10 years ago?
Ooh, hmm.
It could be as deep or as superficial as you want.
Um, it's gonna be cheesy, but just keep believing in yourself, like that doubt's gonna sneak in, but you're a star, baby. Keep going.
I love it. Don't stop. I love it. I love it. I love it. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me. And
Thank you.
I think we're going to put a pin on that future episode for sure. We wish you all the best. Again, I'm going to link all his information in the show notes. And thank you again, my love.